Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Today's guest is a dedicated engineer and results-oriented professional, drawing from extensive on-the-job experience across from numerous construction projects and trades. He possesses outstanding mechanical knowledge. He thrives under pressure, maintaining keen awareness of safety concerns while achieving quality outcomes with minimal supervision. He served as an operations manager in the United States Army and is now the senior facilities engineer at BAE Systems. Justin Frazier, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jay. It's great to be on.
Absolutely. Thanks for investing your time. Can't wait to dig right into your experience and have a great conversation, man.
Yeah, likewise.
So we'll get right to it then. With all of your experience, you've been in the Army, you're in facilities, you run projects. What's been your biggest lesson learned?
Well, I hate to get into it that quick, but definitely it stems right from CYA, and we all know that as cover your butt, or I guess in other terms. So,
sure.
Definitely one of those moments where if you're not covering your butt, you're not crossing your T's, dotting your I's, putting things in writing, making sure that your projects, your customers, your compadres, colleagues are all aligned. So if you're attending meetings and working on notes and things like that, you gotta make sure that your folks are following your lead and you're putting stuff in writing and making sure that it what they want is what it is, and you have a document to go back on for some documentation. So
makes sense. And you may have partially or completely answered my next question about that. What best practices have you and your teammates put in place to make sure that that happens on a consistent basis and, thoroughly?
Well, one thing that's always worked for me is, email organization, making sure that if something happens to me, I happen to go home after work one day and get hit by a bus, that, my team members can come back to work the next day and see that my project folders are up to date. They're organized, they're easy to understand. Same thing with my emails on, individual projects and things like that. But, yeah, just I tend with my organization to put the KISS method on a lot of my things, which is keep it simple, stupid, obviously. So if I know I can go through it and a 5-year-old can find it, so then it should take no time at all for someone to pick up the slack or have a handover. So you got to kind of have that forward thinking of, if I was to save this and just stick it in a folder or anything like that, can one of my colleagues or my manager or, boss or anybody else, a customer, go back and find it just as easy if I wasn't around. So
great system. That's fantastic. Just very good. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else? That was a lot there, but is there anything else to discuss on that, covering things, being thorough?
Yeah, making sure to send off, construction meeting minutes, post meetings, and also look ahead for pre-meeting minutes, so that way folks can not just make sure that they have something to talk about while on those calls to make the most of the call coming up, or make the most of what you went over. It's important to say, hey, here's what I've heard. Does this make sense? I want to make sure that these things are also not just what you want. You also agree to those things when it comes to, when we had a meeting and someone brought up an incident, whether it's a change order, an RFI, or a certain construction activity where we're trying to look ahead, making some notes and jotting those things down to follow up after the meeting separately with the folks that need to be privy to the conversation and say, hey, did you mean this, or is this true? I heard you say this, and maybe the understanding is different. But don't be afraid to ask the question. There's no dumb question. They all have to come up at some point, whether it's you waited to ask it, or it's just, hey, there's no stupid question. They're all legit. I'd rather ask it now than be put on a email blast saying, this wasn't done, or vice versa. So
yeah, it sounds like a lot of verification too. I
Yeah.
heard you say
Yep.
this, and then gives the other party opportunity to correct or edit it or
Yep.
amend it. Or, yes, good.
Yeah.
We
And
didn't. Go ahead, Justin.
no, yeah, you nailed it on the head. So that's
Cool.
it.
We didn't talk about this previously, but now that you brought up project meetings and meeting minutes, how do you handle your project meetings? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Are there any, if you could maybe expand on that? And that's not something we previously talked about, I don't think, but it's a common topic on the show.
So, I mean, any person working in construction obviously knows the whole environment around hosting meetings, on the job site and all that stuff. We can say pre-COVID, has always been, let's do this in person. Let's talk about it. Most of the construction stuff that comes up is a face-to-face, man-to-man handshake agreement conversation. Let's be in the space. Let's see what you're talking about. Let's go over it live. And obviously after COVID and working towards the future of folks working from home and leadership engagement from different initiatives. The meeting environment and where we are today is certainly different. It's something that all project managers, every trade, every worker, employee has to go through. So right, we obviously do a lot of Teams meetings now, or Zoom, Skype, however we can do it. Folks logging in from the field, or calling in and reporting on a certain topic. So it's not just the project manager. It stems all the way down to the lowest echelons, where it could be as simple as, hey, can you ask that guy to come in the room and get off the ladder real quick, or join on his phone while he's trying to install a pipe at the same time, and join and listen in on a meeting where we're going to be taking out a line set the next day or something like that, right? So I would say the world we live in today is starting to look different in the construction industry, and everybody's having to adapt to it, post COVID. So yeah, I mean, if it was my way, I would tend to do a lot of meetings. Hey, let's just go down there and nail this out real quick, and we'll talk about it, come to an agreement, and we'll move forward. But it doesn't always look like that. There's a lot more players involved, and most of the stuff that has to come about is either through a Teams or something virtual, or through a phone call now, or by email. So
makes sense. And this just came up actually just last week on the show too, and that guest agreed, in person, and I agree as well. Whenever you can, there's the whole body language aspect. I mean, you can go back to something without it having to be an email chain and whatnot. So it's great. It's a great rundown. Thank you, Justin.
yeah. And a caveat off of that is always a funny little topic whenever I'm sending out meetings, or we're having to do an in-person or a Teams meeting or whatever that is. I tend to make a little joke comment, because we're obviously used to meeting in the field for a bunch of stuff. So with COVID, it changed the behavior where everybody's used to working from home. And the next thing you know, you'll get a phone call from someone that's on the invite saying, oh my God, are we actually supposed to meet in the room to discuss this topic and go over this? And I'm like, yep, we're all waiting on you. So a lot of people are scrambling and having a hard time, but I try to list it out in my location of the meeting now, where it's bullet point, bold letters, big font. This is in person. Please bring this kind of PPE. Wear your hard hat, boots, glasses, and we'll see you and talk.
Good way to get ahead of it.
We're getting people to. Oh yeah, you're getting people to come back into the office and step out of their eggshell now, and we're seeing a lot more productivity and collaboration.
Excellent. So another really big topic your current company, I'm sure, as we'll talk about your time in the Army, and in construction in general, is safety, right? There's really no option other than to be safe. There's no alternative other than that. So how does that show up in your day to day? Can you talk about that? You can, if you want to jump back to your Army experience, or however you might want to discuss this, but it's such an important topic. Would like to get your thoughts, your best practices. Go ahead.
I mean, obviously from time in the Army, there's a lot of folks, probably listeners, that, we go over things. Everything's done where you have your pre-action, you have your after-action expectations and guidelines to follow. So whenever looking at stuff, safety is obviously the number one thing. No one expects to go into a training exercise, or no one expects to go in to do, a work order or service order, or, assist a soldier in the barracks with a move because they're moving out of the barracks one day and things like that. No one wants to get hurt. So, I mean, having a quick discussion to talk about and say, hey, as a group here, do we see any safety concerns? I mean, it might be no. I mean, that's a valid point, but at least we had an opportunity where someone could raise their hand and say, well, I have a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I mean, I'm glad you asked. You might not be the only person in the room that has the same question. So, just value other people's opinion and which way they're looking at it. I can tell you my experience in the Army when trying to, instruct soldiers like, hey, in facilities, we got to, mow this section of grass, or we got to go trim the hedges, or, we got to ask from the command team to paint this wall or things like that. These are not common practices. You're dealing with folks from every age group, from every ethnicity, all across the world, different people. So, the level of understanding of construction is that, obviously just because you can do it doesn't mean someone else can. So you need to be able to provide the right PPE, the right guidance, so that way they also don't get hurt. It might be the first time they've ever used a lawnmower. So, I mean, a lot of folks can laugh at that, but if you've never cut grass before, yeah, it is what it is. So, I don't know. And looking at things from time now and how it's shifted, even before the Army, I was in construction in the union, and after that I worked, I was right into the project management field. So I see the need for safety this entire time. I'm OSHA 30 certified myself. I think that's a great training for anybody that wants to do it. You learn a lot. You look at things from a different angle. There's, nobody's above, a safety or saying something. So if you see something, say something, right? We obviously know folks aren't supposed to be on the top rung of a ladder. Does it happen? Sure. But do you have the voice to be able to correct it? Or can you instruct the GC and say, hey, I saw this today. I hope to never see it again, right? Like, those are the things that need to get brought up. And, yeah, I mean, nobody's above the safety aspect. So
That's great words. And I like you said, do you have the voice to correct it? Things will happen, but do you have the voice to correct it? That's real. Those are great words. You and I also discussed, I don't know how we worded it, but you can't rationalize the severity of an occurrence or an incident, right?
yeah, I can think of a similar event that happened kind of recently with a project and a small incident where mechanical subcontractor hurt his hand because they was just moving quick, and things weren't talked about probably as thorough as they need to be on expectations and what was moving. So right, a lot of guys are trying to get stuff done before the end of the day, moving too quick to plan for upcoming activities, and he got nicked by a sawzall on the hand, and it cut through his glove, which, makes quick work of that. So, it was just a cut, but it definitely looked like it was bleeding. I'm not him. I can't speak for him on how bad it is. Probably was just a, resurrection with some hydrogen peroxide and a Band-Aid. But, if you have policies in place that you need to follow with your own company and guidelines, right? Like, you need to follow them and make sure that someone is able to get a report and follow up, because usually with an incident in safety, it's always an insurance claim, or that person could go out on, leave, or, and which does affect the project. We need that person to work. It affects their team, their performance, but, like there's every bit of room in a schedule to absorb if an incident happens to occur. And it is what it is. There's the human factor to all the stuff we do. So,
yeah, and I think the overarching that I took from an earlier discussion we had, I forget when, but it was, it could be a Band-Aid, or who are we to say it's serious or it's not serious? You have to follow, like you said, those policies, right? Follow them regardless of how major or how small.
Yeah, everybody loves to make the comment, I'm fine, but you're not fine. You're gonna go seek the medical attention that you need. And, for all you know, you could have got cut by a piece of sheet metal, and next thing you know, you're getting, it's all infected and you got to go get surgery. So yeah, treat it serious because things can compound. So.
I don't think we talked about this, but does your EH&S team ever get involved at your current company? Or what policies do you put in place for contractors and vendors to follow? How do they learn about them? How do they make sure that kind of leads into my next question, that they're complying with the expectation?
So I know a lot of trades out there. Obviously, when you start, a general contractor, subcontractors, a lot of folks are implementing the OSHA. I think there's an OSHA 5 or an OSHA 10 now, which is just generic. I think it's a 1-day or 2-day course that was offered by their company, or they can go host it. So I mean, it's preferable that folks have that. Obviously, it's not something we inspect or check, but there's a new site out nowadays, Can Qualify, that a lot of our companies using today, and we expect that companies are buying in on that, treating that serious, sending the workers through it. I think it goes through a lot of OSHA stuff in there, right? Common practices, ladders, step stools, hard hat, PPE, boots, So there's an expectation also held from myself, when issuing contract, that the general contractor holds most of the liability of the subs and vetting the people coming on site. Obviously, if you notice a guy walking up to the door in the morning, he's coming in the building, he's stumbling a little bit, goes right back to asking the question, "Hey, you okay?" Right? So, we expect that safety is getting mitigated outside of before you come to work, right? That is ultimately the responsibility of the general contractor. But if we happen to notice something, then, if you see something, say something. So, and just handle it, nip it in the butt, and move forward. They don't need to hang up a lot of time on it.
Excellent. And that leads me into the standards and adherence, compliance, topic we discussed at a previous time. How do you and your team maintain proper adherence to standards, or I think there's a phrase that your company uses. Could you expand on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll stem prior, past time in the Army, right? We all, a lot of the work that we're doing, or I was doing as a facilities manager in the military, was, providing service orders and work orders to an active unit that I was in at Fort Bragg. So I was doing a lot of stuff with the DPW department, but these things that we're reaching out in facilities are servicing, something larger than myself. It's my unit, it's my group, it's my team, my squad. It's an individual soldier, and whether something affects you, it doesn't really matter. It could be affecting someone else, and it's a big deal to them. So, something as small as, getting a set of blinds replaced, or, a completely flooding, bathroom battalion building, or something like that. There's all these things that need to get resurrected, and the expectation is it's serving someone larger than myself. So when we talk compliance and standard, right, like, what do we expect for our United States military, right? So that's the gold standard. So we need to step up our game, and contractors need to provide gold standard work, and make sure that things are not just installed lazily, or the work ethic is there and we're having to go back and do rework. That's never a fun thing.
Sure.
From continuation in my career, expectations of how things are installed. When I was a demountable walls project manager, someone has to buy off on your work, and if they're not gonna buy what you're selling, then what are we doing? So you really have to make sure that you have meetings with your team, and everybody's producing a gold standard quality product for the customer. And we also know that things are supposed to be installed a certain way and level of expectation. would you want some crappy cabinetry installed at your house when you know you paid a lot of money for it and saved up? The answer is no. I mean, the customers save and fund all these activities for construction trades. So, I mean, they're either having someone third party check on their end, which I've had some occurrences with, where you're working with a commissioning officer, or you're working with a third party that's checking your work and holding you accountable. So that brings a whole nother level of standard and expectation, and sometimes confusion to the customer, where maybe they're seeing an issue with something and they don't have the knowledge and it's not an issue, but it got presented as one. So the only thing the customer hears is, this is an issue. It was brought to my attention. What are you doing to correct it? Now, escaping out of that, I guess black hole is sometimes hard, but you gotta work and provide the customer the knowledge that what you installed is per spec, per the standard. It's how it gets installed. I mean, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's their say. So migrating that into my current career, it's definitely hits home, because some of our motto is we protect those that protect us. So we have a product that's going out in the facilities that we're expected to upkeep on a day-to-day. So if we have poor facilities to produce a bad product, and then we're not going to be held to the standards that we are, and some of the contracts will start to go downhill. So I think our appearance as a company where I'm at today is a direct reflection of why things are so well, why I like working where I'm at, why the extra level of attention is just I don't mind going the extra mile, because I know it's either going to get recognized, or it's going to show a long-term effect down the road, that is a visible thing, right? Whether it's a long-term contract or a long-term award, and who doesn't want to hear as you're walking down the hallway, oh, look at that, they did this over in that space over there, it looks amazing, it's such a good job, or I wish we had that for our department. It's sometimes
it's a sense of accomplishment, and I would say a sense of pride, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Sometimes construction and facilities can be a thankless role, which we all know, right? Sometimes, you do a ribbon cutting. It's not the guys and the men and women in the field at those ribbon cuttings. It's the big wigs. It's the project managers. It's the folks that are pushing out what the expectations are, and forecasting that to a much larger scheme, to a bigger build and bigger contract. But at the same time, right, the real respects goes down to the men and women that put it all together. So I have a voice for them. I've been there. I've been in the field working myself. So right, like I know to give credit where credit's due, and not try to claim anything as my own, because I didn't do this job by myself. I did it as a team. So yeah.
It's a great perspective you have. It's very, very good perspective on compliance and adherence and ownership. Really, really great stuff, Justin. And as you know, I have two more questions to cover. And so I'll roll us right into the next one, right? Communication. We know to make any and all of everything we've discussed work and work properly and consistently, it all surrounds proper and good, strong communication. Can you expand on that a bit in terms of your experience and how you've learned how to communicate, how you've taught others?
So I'll start off with the striking comment of my past time in the military has educated me enough where early on in my career I thought communication, not that it wasn't important, I just didn't see how big of a picture it was, but the number one death on the battlefield is communication. So it happens. It's unfortunate, but the way you're able to explain and voice and communicate to others is something that's going to lead to a much larger goal or strategy or benefit. But then I've had to do a lot of I guess, self-critique from me on how I want to be talked to as an individual, which has led to me to get results driven and things like that, but also how I'm able to express this is my expectation of how I expect to be communicated to, which is therefore, kind of builds the relationship on how I'm able to voice and get things across to subcontractors, to general contractors, to customers, to stakeholders, and things like that.
Yeah, no, I think, and to bring it back, and you kind of just touched on it too, and really said it, is educate people on, I think you shared with me how to communicate with you, and then also, learn how different people communicate, because there are all sorts of personalities and communication styles and types, right?
Yes.
And getting those to work well together.
And most of it's not just done through a phone call like we talked about earlier, or a meeting or an in-person, right? So, like I said, you have a cover your butt moment where I thought I communicated this clearly, and clearly I have to put it in writing because, some folks chose to leave that meeting and do their own thing on their own accord, which happens a lot, right? You expect that, one little meeting can wrap things up, cross your T's, dot your I's, clap your hands, and we're good to go. And then you get back to your desk and you're like, that is not what we discussed at all. Okay. So then you have to go back and understand, hey, is it the way I explained it? Do you need something more clear? Do you need more from me? And then it just leads to other questions being asked. So I think being able to start the communication and build the relationship with folks allows you to just keep it at a calm, collected level. At the end of the day, this is construction. Nobody's dying. Just don't be afraid to speak up. But then also, during meetings and stuff, have the ability to slow the meeting down and say, hey, does anybody have any questions? And literally just pause. 1, 2, 3. Okay, silence is acceptance. We're kind of going to move forward, and then wait, I have a question, and those things come up. So if it's a time constraint, I'll always say, hey, we're getting to top of the hour here. Can we follow this subject up to with an email if it's kind of long in the tooth, and we can expand on that, or let's take this after this meeting and have a sidebar, to follow up. So.
Excellent. Yep. I like the count to 3. Give everyone the opportunity. Let it sink in.
It's hard. I mean, it's something I struggle with myself. I've had, my girl tells me all the time, hey, and I've heard this comment from my parents and my brother and my dad growing up, like, don't, how's the saying go? Don't listen to respond to, I guess, listen, I think it is, or something like that. It's one of those words, but yeah, like it's your ability to pause and allow someone else to talk is something I've had to do a lot of growth on. I usually in the past have cut people off or not given them a chance to finish a sentence, but that's just me. I'm eager to get my information out and be heard, and it's something I recognize as a growth standpoint. So I have to work at that. I have to, in the room, wait for someone to finish or wait for a break and wait for a pause. And I even see communication nowadays where, I have, my niece, and trying to make sure that she doesn't interrupt me now as an adult, as I did that to my parents as a kid. So it's coming full circle. So, oh yeah.
Well, you're very humble, and you're very self-aware, in my opinion, of observation, and we all appreciate it. Everyone listening and myself, like
Thank you. Yeah,
really good to hear. Yeah,
always something I've always heard is I'm super observant, and nothing much slips past me. So.
Well, I have one more question before we talk about you a little bit, Justin, because everyone's going to want to know more about you since you've taught us so much and given us a lot of your experience. The question is this: what are the most overlooked aspects of facility management or construction projects that you think more people should pay attention to?
Where do I start? So facilities, maybe we can break that down a little bit into like construction projects and facilities and project management. I mean, you kind of have to look at a lot of those in different angles and different parts and pieces, mainly because construction comes into the execution phase of things, and the project management piece is everything from, conception to completion, and then facilities is looking at not so much like how does this benefit the site, the building, the day-to-day activities, logistics, and things like that. So one of the biggest things that is correct me if I'm wrong, you said the question, what's the biggest thing that helps me, right?
The question I had asked was the most overlooked aspects of those facets of the business, right? And that you think more people should pay attention to.
So an overlooked aspect, and I kind of wanted to touch on this above in my my number one biggest lesson learned and experience kind of goes full circle back to most overlooked thing is when it comes to time management and prioritization. I heard a podcast or listened in on a TED Talk. I can't remember. I'll have to try to search back for it. But this guy really spoke to me, and I was able to hear his words when he said, time management and prioritization are totally two different things. A lot of leaders in are rushing through priorities and trying to get things done, and how do we do all this at all the time and merge everything together, and no one wants to wait. Well, time management is what we do as project managers and managing a schedule and things like that. Prioritization is, there's a list of tasks that someone above you wants done, and you got to find a way to do it. But by the comment that always, kind of angers me the most is people think that if you prioritize, that you gain time management. And that statement, in my opinion, is false, right? Just because you prioritized doesn't mean that you gained time. All you did was shuffle the deck and take someone else's expectations and apply that to the prioritization of what the work that needs to get done or the task at hand. So when you have, items 1 through 13, for example, and they're saying, hey, 13 is a priority and 7 goes next and 4 goes over here, and you now need to try to time manage the expectation of their priorities. And sometimes you just can't do it, right? Which is okay. Don't be afraid to say no, and understand that you need to find the things on your day-to-day that give you the most time. That's not anybody's job but yourself. So, right, you're absorbing a project, you're absorbing facilities, you're absorbing a construction activity that it's going to take time. It's up to you to figure it out. Don't get hung up on things, but just understand that priorities are just a rearrangement of a deck, right? They don't give you more time. So time management.
Great distinction.
What you can do in your day to hurry your day up and not spend all day at work and get home, get back to your loved ones, go do the things that you love and not have to work all night and stuff like that. So if it's a quick 5-minute task, my best recommendation, if someone needs you to go answer a quick question about an RFI that could potentially come up in the future or not, just go have the question. It's going to take 5 minutes. You can go right back to doing what you're doing. Kind of like we were saying about the whole safety thing and infectious Band-Aid. If you have something that is a small little Band-Aid today, well, it could be a much larger cut or surgery tomorrow. So a lot of folks that I've seen in the construction industry have enough anxiety about asking a question to begin with. So let's not already add an envelope on top of that where they now lost their avenue to ask the question. And, I think some of the things that I've heard from some managers of mine where if you're coming to me with a problem, it's already too late. It's already a problem. So, that expectation of trying to handle the immediate needs for your subs, for your employees, for your team, just go do them, right? Those are the things that are going to give you more time back in the long run. That, I don't want 100 things over my head. I'd rather have, 15, 20 things over my head and a couple of big items, but have 100 items hanging over your head before you leave for a long weekend like we got going on this week for Labor Day. it's just not needed. You take that stress home with you, and you got to find a way to time manage through it. So, and have those discussions with your teams and your customers and your stakeholders that sometimes it's okay that their priorities don't line up with yours. So don't be afraid to say no. That's another big thing. So
Love it. Justin, great perspective, great education, great distinctions that you're making too. A really, really, really fantastic discussion here. Um, Thank you so much. I mean, we just spent however long, learning from you.
yeah,
And I know myself, I'd like to know more about you. I know a bit, right? And I'm sure the audience would, but do you
yeah.
want to tell us a little bit about your journey and, how you got to where you are today?
So yeah, started early career route working for property maintenance, landscaping company. Did that for about 7 years. Everything, I went from being the bottom guy, I was the weed whacker dude, all the way up to the mowing crew, and then had my own truck, and then had my own crew, snow plowing in the winter, seen a lot of different, I guess, landscape, civil, property maintenance oversight. So that was a big part of my career and still is. I have a big passion for it. If you asked me to go run a weed whacker today, I'd probably do a hop, skip, and a dance. I love it. It's a little bit of a just mindless activity, and going to blow leaves, just go do it. So then, after that, I went to work for the family business. Last names on the side of the building: Frazier Sheet Metal, Go Tin Knockers, Local 17. I started out laboring there, went right into my first year apprenticeship. Did about a year and a quarter, and then just kind of had a change of heart about some of the expectations of where my future was going for that. So I shifted gears on a late merge. Finishing, I was I think 90 or so credits in on my bachelor's degree for schooling, and hit a point in my life where I said I need a major change, and the Army and the military had some traction under my belt to explore that. Of course, anybody telling you no, you can't do that, I'm going to just research it more and find out what it's all about. So,
Good for you.
Yeah, not a lot of exposure in my family to anything military. So, I think it's, just my cousin in the Navy and myself in the Army, and that was it. And being from New England, anybody from here, we don't really have a big military ambiance or presence. So as soon as I hit the front door at Fort Benning, Georgia, at our reception company, I was definitely in culture shock. So went from that through boot camp, through job training, as I was a 15 Papa aviation operations. As anybody knows in that field, that we don't get to do our job as much as I'd like to at the unit I was at, but I was proficient in it, and there was some opportunity for some extra growth and some extra hats to be worn. So no one at my unit was taking on the responsibilities and roles for facilities management, for security management. I definitely, did the Roger Sergeant. I raised my hand for everything I could and bit the bullet and took on those opportunities. So a little bit of pat on my back for myself. I heard from some folks that did the facilities management and a larger element or larger unit in the military. And, they were like, yeah, I did facilities management for 2 years and took care of these giant buildings and this. And I had like 20 work orders and maybe 40 service orders. So I guess the difference between a work order and a service order is a work order is anything that Fort Bragg or the DPW or the military installation owns that they can just send a guy out to fix, and it's a quick, immediate need if a sink's leaking or there's an electrical breaker that tripped or something like that. And then a service order is something that's going to be submitted on with funding if they wanted to install monkey bars or get the entire sidewalk replaced. It's going to be a little bit more capital dollar threshold. So I left my time and my unit in the military after 4 years, and I actually was recognized by the DPW department at Fort Bragg for over 390 work orders in and about 125 service orders, and they've never seen that before. So
nicely done.
Yeah,
that's
so
impressive.
it definitely. I mean, with my past construction background and just I give a crap factor. I care about stuff. I definitely take it probably further than things need to go. So there's that. And right after I got out of the Army, I went into a project management role for a demountable walls company in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that stemmed right into having really my first bread and butter team back out into my civilian career. And I ended my contract in the Army at the same time COVID was hitting. So there was a real awkward time in my life where I was driving on the highway, not knowing really why I was the only one going to work for 3 weeks, and I was the only car on the road, and I figured it out quickly. So, but yeah, it started my project management career, new into a new team, hard to connect with folks, and as soon as I hit the ground running, my manager that I had there, they basically hadn't had a project manager with someone on board for quite some time, and he was running the expectation between two departments. So as soon as I got to my first project management role, it was hit the ground running. Here's 86 projects that were all in a mess and shambles dumped in my lap. A big advocate for how I was able to get through all that is, Procore and, like I said, time management and prioritization. Keep the plate spinning. What's bleeding? What's not? What do I need to focus on? And just try to triage where it was. But as soon as I started, I basically was. I'm not going to say I was handed the department in my lap, even though it felt like that. But I definitely was put into a lot of projects that needed some immediate response. So
you're certainly an achiever. I'll say that, Justin.
I try to. I spent about a year and a half, year and 3/4. Back, stayed in North Carolina for a while, and then an opportunity came where I got a call hired from an A&E firm out of Boston that had a contract to where I am now at BAE Systems. So they reached out to me, expressed some interest, and there was a need up north. I saw it as a key time in my life where here's an opportunity for me to move my career back closer to home, closer to family, which is something I near and dear and miss. And I jumped all over it, hit the ground running. I told them, just give me 30 days and I'll pack up my life and I'll be there. And I basically jumped in the box truck on Friday night, drove through the night. I left it packed and hopped in my mom's car and went to work on Monday morning. So I can figure out the rest as it goes. And then since then, I'm off of the contract for project manager here where I am now, and full time at BAE Systems. They got to definitely see my skills and see what I'm about before making me an offer. And I'm here today. Definitely happy where I'm at. It's definitely good. There's a lot of growth here, a lot of opportunity. So big advocate for a facilities role, and then across the New England sector. I mean, as a kid I used to drive by BAE Systems as a large company, and I was like, man, I'd love to work there someday. And I can't believe still today I get to embody what they're about, which is, we protect those who protect us, and the facilities and stuff and projects I'm working on definitely have a larger impact downrange. I have a great example of where I am now. Some of the facilities that I work with folks. I mean, the truck I used to drive in the military, it didn't say General Motors across the steering wheel. It said BAE Systems. So the expectation and compliance and what has to go out downrange. There's no room for error. It has to be perfect. You can't have something flaw downrange on someone that's trying to perform a mission that goes back to Homeland Security and protecting the lives of those that serve us. So yeah.
Well said.
That's where I'm at today.
Justin, man, I'm going to say this, right? I think you just packed a masterclass in achievement, growth, goal setting and achieving, and just working your career in the direction you want in under 10 minutes. Well done. And thank you. I mean, it's great. And congrats on all your achievements too.
Yeah. Thank you. You're definitely led how this was supposed to flow nicely. And you set the expectation for for allowing all this to come about and making it easy. So.
No, hey, listen, this is, I mean, the audience, thank you. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. If you learned something today from Justin, if you laughed, tell someone else about the show. Justin, thanks again. And, we'll see you next time on Facility Rockstars, everybody.